This program is brought to you by Link TV for educational and non-commercial use only. Mosaic, a daily news program from Link TV, presents a selection of news reports from independent and state-controlled broadcasters from throughout the Middle East.
Some numbers are coming out here that Tzipi Livni's party, Kadima, has secured so far 29 seats. Benjamin Netanyahu's Likud party, 27 seats. Israel Beitanu, 15 seats, which puts it in the third position, as was expected and projected. Labour Party, 13 seats, and the Shas Party, 10 seats. We can look at some live pictures now coming in from Israeli Channel 2 now. That's where we've been getting these figures. You can see the pie chart there showing the split that's going on in the Knesset right now between the right wing parties, 64 seats, and the leftist and centrist parties, 56 seats of the Knesset. As expected, more seats for the right-wing bloc, so not a huge surprise. Things coming down pretty much where the chips were expected to fall so far. Let's listen in to the commentary that's coming in from Channel 2 now.
With this majority, you can see there are 2 seats only for Kadima against the Likud. Lieberman is around the 14 or 15 seat mark. 4 or 5 years ago, this would have been an amazing achievement. Now it's still impressive. And now we're going to Kadima headquarters.
Right. All right, perhaps the most surprising result there that we've been seeing in those figures that were coming in from Israeli Channel 2 is that Tzipi Livni's party is actually a couple of seats ahead of Likud. I can give you some results coming in from Channel 10 now, the Israeli media Channel 10, projecting again Kadima being ahead of Likud, but giving Kadima 30 seats as opposed to 28 for Likud. Let's go over to Mike Hanna. He's, of course, at the Kadima election headquarters. Mike, what's the mood there, and what's the reaction to some of these early exit polls coming in?
Well, Sammy, all 3 major expert polls have Kadima as the winner in the selection at this particular stage. Now, if I just move away from the camera, well, that's what the reaction is like here at the Kadima party headquarters. Within the last half hour, there has been an increase in excitement. As I mentioned a little bit earlier, we heard from a number of people that Tzipi Livni was ahead. Now, this is actually a remarkable turnaround. It's only in the past 48 hours, or in the last round of polling on Friday, at which it became clear that Tzipi Livni was getting closer and closer to the Likud party. However, now, if these exit polls are to be accepted, it is a remarkable turnaround.
Well, just as those results were coming out, in fact, Mr. Netanyahu himself arrived here at Likud party headquarters and was instantly mobbed by a group of enthusiastic supporters who were chanting "Bibi, Bibi," which is, of course, the nickname by which he's known here in Israel. But obviously the numbers on the screens behind tell a different story, and it really is going to be very interesting now. Obviously, these are only exit polls. They give an indication, but they're by no means scientific, so we're clearly going to have to stay up for a few more hours as the numbers, the official results start to come in. But at the moment, we are looking in a very interesting situation, because if you combine Mr. Netanyahu's seats with those of the right-wing Israel Beitanu party, you have about 43. And if you combine the Kadima votes with those for the Labour Party, you come up again with about 43. So it really will be a question now of whether, in fact, as according to the protocol, the Israeli president approaches Kadima first and offers them the first chance to form the government, at which point clearly there's going to be a real scramble in the Knesset, a lot of consultations behind closed doors, a lot of Knesset mathematics going on. The real question is, despite the fact that Ms. Livni has obviously, or at least according to the exit polls, she looks to have come out on top of the pile, the question will be whether or not she could cross the second hurdle, which is to actually pass the 61-seat mark, which is needed to actually form a government. As I said, still early days. We need these exit polls to turn now into official results before we can actually start working real numbers, Sammy, to figure out who is going to have the best chance, or who is the only one who will be capable of forming a new government.
Ali Wagalanter joins us now from Likud headquarters in Tel Aviv. Likud was the front runner during most of the campaign but lost ground toward the end. Eli, are supporters optimistic of victory tonight?
Yes, Laura, I actually spoke to a couple of sources in Likud today. They told me they are cautiously optimistic. They believe that they will finish first tonight at 10 o'clock when the results come in. But the only question will be by how much. You have to remember Likud was a party that was crushed in the last election. They only gained 12 seats in 2006. They are now expecting anywhere from 12 to 15, perhaps even 17 seats, which could make this the largest one-time jump from one election to the other for one party in Israeli political history. Meanwhile, right now, there are no Likud high-level officials here because there's not much to do or say here. There's no voting booth here, no slips to put in a booth. What you do have are camera crews who've been setting up all day. Some 40 foreign crews have been set up for tonight's results. They are now set up here all through the hall. A lot of noise and chaos, if you can hear that behind me. I've got CNN behind me. I've got Al Jazeera to my left. And they're anticipating to be here for the victorious Likud party at 10 o'clock tonight. Back to you in the studio.
And joining us now in the studio is our election expert, Mitchell Barak from Kivun Research. Welcome, Mitchell, on this very busy day. Has voter turnout been pretty much as expected, or higher or lower?
I think up until now it's been a little bit higher than expected. I think we're at about 4 percentage points higher than the last election, but still a few percentage points lower than the election before that. And it's started to really rain very heavily, and that might affect turnout going into the evening.
Mitchell, from what you've heard, has the balloting gone smoothly, or have there been irregularities?
There are complaints on all sides from all different parties, and it wouldn't be an Israeli election if people didn't complain and say that someone was cheating. So I don't know that we can take how seriously we can take it. Some of it is real, bona fide election problems with balloting, and some of it is just getting supporters out by saying that there's a conspiracy against my party, and therefore you have to go out and vote.
By all accounts, this is a very close race now between Kadima and Likud, and it might be coming down to a matter of organization or a lack of organization. Who's got the nod?
Well, I think if you look at between Kadima and Likud, Likud certainly has a better organization. That's due for two reasons. First of all, they have about double the amount of members, about 150,000 members versus about 70,000 members for Kadima. Second is that they're a well-entrenched party. They've been around for many, many years, whereas Kadima, this is only the second election that they're actually running. So Likud has an advantage, but I think the war in Gaza really changed it, because I think that there was not a lot of work on election day organization, what they call, leading up to the campaign, and a lot of both Kadima and Likud spent a lot of effort and certainly a lot of money on the internet campaign. And what we saw during this election was, to a certain extent, a virtual campaign, meaning trying to reach out to people via the internet and not really getting into the field and getting to speak to people at party events and so forth. And that's where you really get the turnout and you get the machine to work. So I think it's a pretty even playing field for that.
More than 34% of eligible voters have already participated in the Israeli elections, which is higher than the previous elections. This number is expected to rise to 60% once the voting booths are closed. According to the latest opinion polls, the right-wing Likud, headed by Benjamin Netanyahu, and the right-centrist Kadima, headed by Tzipi Livni, will win about 25 seats. The extreme right-wing party Beituna, headed by Avigdor Lieberman, is in third place, advancing ahead of the left-centrist Labour Party, led by the Minister of Defense Ehud Barak.
وسط أحوال جوية سيئة بدأ الناخبون في إسرائيل.
Amidst bad weather conditions, Israeli voters began to register their votes in early public elections, which will lead to the formation of a new government.
33 لائحة تتنافس في النزال الانتخابي.
33 lists are competing in the elections in order to decide the members of the 120-seat Knesset. Each list must get 2% of the votes in order to enter the Knesset. Amidst major ideological differences between the right and the left, nearly 5.3 million voters have the right to vote at 9,000 voting centers. The competition, which is said to be heated and intense, appears closer than any other previous election. This is due to the fact that the election system is based on proportionate representation, which will ultimately lead to the formation of yet another unity government that may be threatened by weakness or may become in danger of collapse. These elections have witnessed a major advance of the extremist right wing and a heated competition between the former Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, the head of the Likud bloc, the main opposition party, and the Foreign Minister Tzipi Livni, the head of the centrist Kadima party.
I did what I hope every Israeli will do: go to the voting booths and vote without fear or despair. I voted for Kadima, the party which many people will vote for.
The predictions indicate that Israel Beituna will get third place after its right-wing leader, Avigdor Lieberman, gained popularity. He focused his campaign on security fears.
The elections campaign witnessed many parties that talked a lot. However, only one party acts more than it talks. We are doing well, and we will do better after the elections.
According to polls, Minister of Defense Ehud Barak, the head of the Labour Party, will occupy fourth place. This despite the fact that his polling numbers increased since the war on Gaza. The opinion poll organization indicates that the results of the elections may be decided by just a small number of votes, where smaller parties will gain ground, or by the votes of 10 to 15% of the undecided voters. Khaled Al-Kashif, Al-Arabiya.
Dozens of residents in the city of al-Faham in northern Israel held a protest aimed at preventing a Jewish right extremist from entering the city. A confrontation ensued between the protesters and the Israeli police after the residents tried to prevent Barak Marzel from entering al-Faham. Marzel, a member of the Unity National Party, was assigned as an election monitor inside the voting centers of al-Faham. However, the Israeli police prevented him from entering the city in attempts to avoid protests or confrontations with the Arab residents there.
Contrary to expectations, the turnout of Arab voters has disappointed public pollsters, at least until this afternoon. The Arab voters have different reasons than their Jewish counterparts. In their opinion, the feud comes in response to the latest Israeli military aggression on the Gaza Strip.
We need to respond to the aggression on our people in Gaza. We also need to take actions against Israeli racists. They don't want us in the country and they don't want us to vote. Therefore, we must respond to them by voting in large numbers.
The entrance to the city of al-Faham looks like a huge military buildup to counter Arab outrage. The reason for this is the extremist Jew, Baruch Marzel, has chosen to come to this city on the day of the elections.
The Central Elections Commission made a decision to allow the right-wing fascist, Baruch Marzel, to enter the city of al-Faham in the name of democracy. In the name of democracy, he comes to al-Faham to threaten the residents of the city and to ban democracy. So, in the name of democracy, he wants to deny democracy and prohibit people from voting.
According to opinion polls, nearly 1 million Arabs have the right to vote, but only 60% of them will be voting today. Calls by some Arabs inside of Israel to boycott the Israeli elections appear to have had little impact, especially since most of the voters believe that the voting booth is one of the proactive ways to confront Israeli extremism. From inside one of the voting polls in the city of Nazareth in northern Israel, Khalid Al-Qasim, Al-Arabiya.
Khalid Al-Qasim, Al-Arabiya.
Joining us in our studio, the Arab thinker Azmi Bishara.
دكتور عزمي أهلا بك. لنبدأ من موضوع الانتخابات الإسرائيلية تحديدا من
Welcome, Dr. Azmi Bishara. Let us start with the Israeli elections, specifically the low participation. So far, Israeli voters seem to lack enthusiasm toward these elections. This raises several questions, especially when considering that Israel has just ended a war and is at a crossroads.
The lack of participation among the Israeli society in public life started in the 1950s and it continues. In addition to the fact that political parties lack specific ideological platforms, Israeli society is increasingly becoming more individualistic and more consumeristic. Another reason is the lack of tangible differences between the political parties. There are only personal differences amongst the candidates, but they do not have serious ideological differences. The differences between the candidates also tend to disappear after the elections. For example, if Netanyahu is elected as president, Barak will try to be the security minister, and Tzipi Livni will try to be the foreign minister. Therefore, the differences between these candidates are very minor. However, I noticed that this time the competition between the candidates is stronger than it was during previous elections. During the last election, Kadima was ahead of all other parties after Sharon had gone. People did not feel an urgent need to vote because they knew that the Kadima party will have a guaranteed victory. Now the competition between the candidates is too close to call, which explains why more people are voting. However, what concerns me is the lack of participation amongst the Arab Israelis. In the past, the percentage of those who voted was high. About 90% of Arab Israeli voters participated in the municipal elections. They seem to be interested when the elections affect them at the local level. However, things are different when it comes to national issues, such as the candidates Avigdor Lieberman, whose main message is to incite the Israeli public against Arab Israeli citizens. So why would Arab Israeli voters not vote even if it was raining and snowing? I would like to call on my brothers, the Arab Israeli voters, to come out for the Israeli elections. This will be the strongest response against Lieberman. We as Arab Israeli citizens must have political representation in Israel. My personal experience was not encouraging. Israel went after me due to my political views and started to make accusations against me. However, in the process of participating in the Israeli political system, we have managed to establish the foundation of a national Arab political discourse that combines both our national aspiration and the rights of Arab citizens in Israel. This foundation must be protected because it is the only way to defend the rights of Arab Israeli citizens. The objective is not to change Israel as an entity because it will not change. Arab Israelis must participate in the elections. They must go out and vote.
Doctor, you're saying that Arab Israelis must vote, but who are they going to vote for? The differences between the candidates are very minor.
One of the positive things that happened as a result of the wars in Lebanon and Gaza is that Arab citizens in Israel stopped supporting Zionist parties. Arabs will not vote for Zionist parties. They have Arab parties and they can vote for them. These parties have differences, but in essence, Arab citizens in Israel must have political representation. Also, Arab citizens in Israel must fight for their rights and their national identity, or else they will be forced in the future to form alliances with Zionist parties whenever they need something from the government. Of course, Arab Israelis will be expected to show political loyalty to the state.
Israeli warships renewed their attack on the coast of the Gaza Strip, damaging many Palestinian fishermen boats.
Every day the Palestinian fishermen go out to sea to make their living. They face the risk of losing their lives at any moment amidst a suffocating Israeli siege by air, land and sea, which has deprived them and their children of making a living.
Under siege, starved and threatened, death by Israel is always imminent. Yet Palestinians live with hope. This hope motivates Palestinian fishermen to go out to the afflicted areas to make a living in order to support their children. They have nothing left but the generous sea to provide for them. However, the occupation has turned it into a sea of death with the Israeli warship blockade, which threatens them with gunfire and bombs. Gaza fishermen confirm that the distance from the coast where they are allowed to fish has been reduced from 37 kilometers to only 5 or 6 kilometers ever since the Israeli aggression on Gaza. These coastal waters have very few fish in them to catch, while they remain under constant gunfire by the occupation warships.
There is very little. We are only allowed to fish within 6 miles from the shore, but there are no fish here. We bring in our fishing nets and bait, which costs us 4,000 to 5,000 shekels. They wait for us until we arrive at the 6-mile point, and then they start to fire at us. Once we pass 6 miles, they shoot at us and turn us back. Within 6 miles from the coast, there are little to no fish.
Israel was not satisfied with just the siege and destruction, so it penetrated inside to destroy what is left of the Palestinian economy with its continuous war.
Meanwhile, the Arab League has begun to collect statements, information and eyewitness accounts from the victims of the Israeli aggression on the Gaza Strip. This will support Arab efforts as Arab representatives head to the International Criminal Court to try the Israeli war criminals. At a press conference held after a meeting with the director of the Palestinian Center for Human Rights, the lawyer Rajai Surani, the Assistant Secretary General of the Arab League for Palestinian Affairs and Occupied Arab Territories, Ambassador Mohammed Speer, said that the Arab League, along with many legal experts, Arab, Palestinian and civic organizations for human rights, have interviewed many of the Palestinians injured to document what happened to them due to the Israeli aggression on the Gaza Strip.
Shoes were thrown at the ambassador of the terrorist Zionist entity to Sweden while he was giving a lecture at Stockholm University in protest of the criminal Israeli attacks on Gaza. Meanwhile, 13 parliament members in Brussels signed a petition demanding that the European Parliament impose sanctions on Israel in order to force it to respect international law. The petition also called for freezing all talks. The Socialist Parliament member in Paris, Francis Wirth, condemned the targeting of civilians by Israel and demanded that the siege on Gaza be lifted and that an international investigation be conducted regarding Israel's human rights violations during the aggression on Gaza. The Spanish Parliament member Joseph Pearl, who has presided over the European Union in the past, expressed his strong anger toward Israel's aggression and demanded that the European Union take action against Israel's violations.
The implication of the criminal attack that was launched by the Zionist war machine against our unarmed Palestinian people in Gaza continues to unfold in many of the world's capitals.
The savage Israeli attack on Gaza, which lasted for 3 continuous weeks, has failed to achieve any of the alleged objectives. It only added more massacres and new war crimes to Israel's criminal record and put it and its leaders in an unprecedented state of isolation. Many international organizations are pursuing legal measures against the Israeli occupation's leaders and commanders for using internationally banned weapons such as white phosphorus. Meanwhile, angry protesters continue to hold demonstrations condemning the Israeli occupation and its crimes throughout the world. Students from the British University of Manchester occupied university offices in protest of the Israeli aggression, while hundreds of others held demonstrations holding signs with phrases condemning Israel and its aggression. The demonstrations quickly turned into violent clashes between the protesters and riot police. The streets of the French capital of Paris also witnessed massive demonstrations in which the protesters held Palestinian and Turkish flags and expressed their outrage over the war of annihilation that was carried out by the occupation's army against unarmed Palestinian civilians who have been deprived of life's basic necessities. In Latin America, specifically, the presidents of Venezuela and Bolivia, Hugo Chavez and Evo Morales, announced cutting their ties with Israel during the Israeli aggression on Gaza and expelled the Israeli ambassadors from Caracas and La Paz. Also, Venezuelan citizens held demonstrations outside the Israeli embassy and threw stones at it. They expressed solidarity with the Palestinian people and condemned the Israeli war crimes against humanity.
الإيراني على الإشارات الأمريكية الجديدة فلم يتأخر حيث أعرب الرئيس محمود أحمدينجاد.
Iran's response to the US's new gesture has arrived quickly. During a speech before thousands of Iranians marking the 30th anniversary of the Islamic Revolution, President Mahmoud Ahmadinejad said that his country is willing to hold talks with Washington in an atmosphere of fairness and mutual respect. Commenting on the US's foreign policy toward a dialogue with Iran, Ahmadinejad said that a real change must be fundamental and not tactical. Today, tens of thousands of Iranians took to the streets of the Iranian capital, Tehran, in massive demonstrations and lengthy speeches, marking the 30th anniversary of the Islamic Revolution. The anniversary comes amidst internal economic problems and amidst international isolation. Muna Abu Diab reports.
Each year and over the past 30 years, tens of thousands of Iranians have marked the victory of the Islamic Revolution by taking to the streets of their local cities. Today, memories bring them back to historic moments captured on cameras. Moments such as the declaration of victory of the Islamic Revolution, followed by the return of its leader, Imam Ayatollah Ruhollah Khomeini, from exile in France. Iran marked the historic days of the revolution by raising the same old banners, which paved the way to the declaration of the Islamic Revolution. These banners, which carried the slogans of independence and self-sufficiency, have become the objectives of the Islamic Revolution, in addition to the showdown with the West, led by the U.S., or the Great Satan, as often referred to by the revolution. These slogans have been raised for more than 3 decades. However, they have not changed anything on the ground, especially to the life of the ordinary citizen.
We're facing many problems in our country. To me, the most important problem is the soaring inflation, which is making life very hard for us. I firmly believe that the revolution has not produced anything tangible, and yet another revolution will not produce changes either. We're living amidst an impasse.
In the language of numbers and economic terms, Iran is the 4th largest oil-producing country in the world. Today, Iran is facing a 25% rate of inflation and a budget deficit of $44 billion after offsetting surplus from oil revenues during the past few years. Today, nearly 15 million Iranians are living below the poverty line, with malnutrition threatening 2 million of them. In addition, Iran is facing international isolation stemming from 3 packages of sanctions due to its nuclear program. It's a long historic record, with its 30th page being closed today, especially as Iran is getting ready to embark on a new political phase. This news comes as reformist and former president of Iran, Mohammad Khatami, decided to enter the presidential race from the doors of the opposition in order to counter the current policies of the conservatives.
Get more news about the Middle East online at linktv.org/mosaic. The Mosaic webpage offers a complete archive of Mosaic programs, program transcripts, the Mosaic video podcast, and the Mosaic Intelligence Report, a weekly analysis of the hottest stories from the Middle East. The views expressed on Mosaic are those of the participating broadcasters, not Link TV or its sponsors. The production of Mosaic is made possible with the support of viewers like you. Thank you. This program was brought to you by Link TV for educational and non-commercial use only. Link TV is the only U.S. television network devoted to global and national news, with uncompromising documentaries and diverse cultural programs. Programs which connect you to the world.